And with that said, I have one friend who is willing to share her story today. These guys were the recipients of Cassie's dream, and you guys are all the people that allow it to happen. And Natalie is here today as a breast cancer veteran. She's a mother of two littles. She's a Wisconsin resident, and she has a full-time job, takes care of her family, and has a deep passion for helping others feel seen and supported. So give a CHSCF welcome to Natalie. Hi there. Good evening. Can you hear me okay? All right. Slides coming up here shortly. Before that comes up, I can confidently say from my experience, Cassie, that you have created that place and your dream definitely came true. In my experience, Base to Summit isn't just a fluffy little camp. So that's my lovely picture of myself. I wish I could recreate that dress, but just didn't quite fit me the same. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. Before I share my story about learning a language that I never asked to speak, I want to start the way that we began every night at Base to Summit. Each evening, before we talked, before we listened, before we reflected, we lit a candle. We lit it in remembrance of Cassie and in honor of every story, every loss, every shadow of shame, and every hope that was brought into that circle. Those nights around the fire were sacred to me. They felt like the army you always hope would be there for you when life falls apart. They were shared with the kind of people who don't rush you, who don't try to fix you, and who don't ask you to be strong or just be grateful that you're alive. It was in that circle that I felt deeply safe, deeply seen, and deeply held. Tonight, I want to bring you all into that circle. And for those of us who were there, I want to take us back to our very special campfire circle. This is the special magical candle. Life right after a cancer diagnosis is like being dropped into a foreign country without knowing that language. Overnight, you're surrounded by words that you didn't choose to be in your vocabulary. Surgical terms, scans, medication, stages, side effects. Everyone but you seems fluent. Doctors speak quickly. Decisions must be made before you can even begin processing what is happening or what this means. Paperwork and appointments pile up. And you're standing there thinking, how did I get here? I don't speak this. I can't understand. But you learn, not because you want to, but because you have to. Because you need to make sense what is happening to your body and to your life. And before you know it, you've attained forced fluency. Fluency in a language that you never asked to speak, that you wish you never had to speak, that now you can never unlearn. Even when treatment ends, even when people say, congratulations, you've rang the brass bell, you're done. You don't stop speaking that language. You're fluent forever. You carry it into a date night with your partner, grocery shopping, work meetings, your kid's soccer practice, just an ordinary Tuesday morning. And the hardest part is this: Most people around you, they don't speak it. So you learn to carry the weight of translating yourself or silence. And I am still learning how to stay in the room when I want to run and disappear. Before cancer, my life met some of society's external expectations of strength, success, and beauty. Minimal family history of cancer, the competitive athlete growing up, the high school track runner who still holds the school record at the 800-meter run, the one who won best body, or most likely to be a model. From a young age, I learned a very specific language, which formed my expectations for myself and my life. Achievement, performance, pushing through, impressiveness, acceptance. I learned how to outrun discomfort, how to override my body, how to keep going no matter what. What I didn't learn was how to speak up when I needed a break, how to ask for help, or how to speak with vulnerability and honesty when I wasn't okay. So when life got hard, especially in the years after getting married in 2014, I was living a life that looked really full on the outside. But inside, I felt lonely, unworthy, and scared. We've been trying to get pregnant for years, and it wasn't happening. And instead of slowing down, I did what I knew how to do. I pushed, I controlled, I hid my shame, I looked for something or someone to finally see and love me. And before long, I found myself adopting a new vocabulary, one of darkness, self-loathing, and lost hope. I didn't lose myself quietly. I made choices I am not proud of, choices that came from pain, from disconnection, from trying to escape what I didn't know how to face. And for a long time, I carried deep shame around that. Then, 2018, I became a mom for the first time. Our son, Liam, was born, and I loved him with my whole heart. But I was also scared. Scared I wasn't enough. Scared I couldn't be the mom that he deserved. That pressure didn't slow me down. It made me push harder. I coped in unhealthy ways. I carried shame for my decisions. And eventually, that way of living caught up with me. In 2020, I was in active addiction. My depression and shame had reached a breaking point, and I was completely disconnected from myself. And one night, while my 2-year-old son slept in his crib, I attempted to take my own life. The next day, I woke up knowing with absolute clarity, if I didn't change, I was going to die. On November 5th, 2020, I got sober. And I later entered treatment. Sobriety wasn't a lifestyle or a wellness choice for me. It was survival. I knew it might cost me things, even friendships. But deep down, I also knew this. An honest life doesn't happen in comfort or control. A life of integrity asks everything of you. And it reveals who will meet you there and who won't. And that is where I felt God the most. Not in perfection, not in performing, but in brokenness. In 2021, I became pregnant again. And then in February of 2022, our daughter Etta was born. She was perfect, just like her older brother Liam. And I thought my life was finally turning a corner. And then later that year, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I was breastfeeding when I found out. And here's something that I need to say, because it matters. For years, the only question that was ever asked of me, of my doctors, do you have a family history? And I would answer the same way. Yeah, my grandpa and a cousin. And the conversation would stop. No one told me about genetic testing. No one told me you can carry a BRCA2 gene with minimal family history. After I was diagnosed, a provider sat across from me and said, "Well, would you have really wanted to know?" That moment changed something in me, because our care teams are not meant to be our moral compass. They are meant to give us information so we can make informed decisions about our lives and our bodies. I am living proof that family history alone is not enough. In a matter of weeks, I learned I had cancer and I carried the BRCA2 gene. I did not care what I looked like. I wanted to live. In less than a month, I went from breastfeeding a baby to having cancer, a genetic mutation my family did not know, and then finding out after surgery that I would have to get my ovaries taken out and that I would be in surgical-induced menopause at the age of 37. I had no nipples or breasts because reconstruction was not an option for me due to mastitis that I had developed from breastfeeding. Cancer was in my lymph nodes. It was in my internal mammary nodes, in my chest. This was serious. This was life or death. Again. I celebrated Thanksgiving by losing my breasts, Christmas with a Newport and chemo, and I rang in the new year with no hair. I remember coming home from my surgery and not being able to hold my new baby. I remember being in the bathroom one night, sick from chemo. Etta was sleeping in the room next to me, and she woke up frightened by the sound of me throwing up. And there was nothing I could do to protect her from that moment. I remember explaining to my 4-year-old son why I was going to lose my hair and why I was bald. Those moments live in my body. Cancer teaches you such a brutal language. After everything I had been through, faith kind of stopped being a hobby, and it became a lifeline. Not faith as certainty or answers, but faith as surrender. Learning to accept I can't control my body, I couldn't control the outcome, I couldn't control what or who stayed and what was taken. So I had to let go and keep leaning into life and place my fear, my shame, my grief into God. During that season, I chose to get baptized. Not because I was healed or perfect, far from it, but because I didn't want to keep hiding. Choosing God didn't erase the language of cancer, but it added new words to my vocabulary. And at the top was humility, the kind that strips you of control and asks you to face what is actually true. What surprised me most about cancer wasn't how treatment was, how hard that felt. It was that cancer didn't stop just because a bell rang. The pressure to perform rose right back to the surface, to be the holder of everything, my job, my sobriety, my children, my marriage, other people's fear and grief. I struggled to rest because somewhere along the way, I learned that rest had to be earned. And I was also afraid that if I stopped, that my entire world would fall apart. And again, underneath all of that, shame. So much shame in how I looked. Shame about my marriage struggling. Shame about intimacy. Shame about what I had been through. And if I'm honest, I still didn't feel worthy of being fully seen in all of this. But I knew my faith that it would lead me to where I would need to go next. And then, Base to Summit entered my life. When I arrived, I thought I knew what I was coming for. Connection, movement, support, adventure. What I didn't expect was what happened to my entire nervous system. From the moment I arrived, everything was handled. Meals were planned and cooked. Ingredients were left out of my strict diet. My favorite coffee creamer was in the fridge. The weather was written out. Lunch and snacks were ready to go. There was a new itinerary every day. I gave us the nickname the Cancerettes because it felt like I was on The Bachelorette every single day. Packing lists were ready. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the pressure to anticipate anyone else's needs. I could just be. And for the first time in a long time, I was seen. It was also one of the very few cancer spaces, believe it or not, that was completely alcohol-free. That mattered deeply to my peace, my safety, and my healing. At Base to Summit, I didn't have to translate myself. Everybody there spoke the same language, and something softened in me. Everything I'm describing, the safety, the belonging, the shared language, that was built by people, and many of them are sitting in the room tonight. If you were a part of Base to Summit as a camper, as a staff member, as a travel agent, somebody who called me, volunteers, shifts, I need you to know this. You changed my life. And that experience didn't stay at camp. When I got home, I started to carry a more humble, aligned, new language with me. Belonging, safety, worthiness, honesty, curiosity, and self-acceptance. I fell in love with curling at camp. And I immediately signed up for a league back home. Did I mention I was competitive? Once home, I brought my children with me, and I introduced it to them, and they had a blast. They loved it. And that joy of a shared experience, that lives in my body too now. And I have Base to Summit to thank for that. And with the strength of Base to Summit and my fellow campers, I launched ROCKS, which stands for Recovery, Oncology, Community, and Sobriety. It is the first ever sober-focused cancer support community for people navigating cancer and recovery. Or maybe they're dealing with medications. Maybe they're unsure that there's not a world that exists for them right now. Right now, they're having to do it silently and alone. None of this came from being perfect. It came from finally being seen and realizing how much that matters. And this is what I'm still learning about healing since camp. It can feel so powerful to stand up to pain and shame, to push through it, to endure it, to be a warrior. But true healing is not standing up to pain and shame. It is allowing yourself to stand in it and then be seen there by others. Because I can't heal while turning the world away. I can't heal while running, hiding, numbing, or shielding. I'm living proof that there is no such thing as too far gone or too much damage. Shame wants me to believe that. It tells me to withdraw. It tells me to isolate, to push people away, to stay small. That is where it gets its power. But healing begins every time I allow myself to be seen by God and those who care about my peace and safety, just like Base to Summit did. Not fixing me, not rescuing me, not saving me, just seeing me, just as we're doing right now. This is what it looks like for me to stop hiding, not getting everything right or being perfect, but choosing to stay honest and being seen anyway. And this is the language of love and faith I'm still learning to speak. Every night at camp, we closed the same way, together by the fire. We didn't fix everything. We didn't rush back into the world. We reminded ourselves, though, that none of us have to carry this alone. Being seen gave me clarity about my worth, clarity about acceptance and owning my story, clarity about the space that I needed to create when I got back home to protect my peace and show up healthier for the people that I love. Base to Summit never told me what to do, but they did help me trust and love myself, and that changed everything. If you were part of Base to Summit, either with my group or the group of 4, Karen kind of stole my thunder on this, but if you could please stand up. Doesn't matter which group you're with. And this is what community and being held looks like. And it's only possible because of people who choose to give. So tonight, if you ever wondered whether this camp creates impact, we are proof that it does. It changes real lives. Those lives, my life. Keep Cassie's dream alive. Give tonight to help the next young survivors that are coming through so they can have a place to be seen, to breathe, and to keep going. Those of you who are standing, please feel free to sit. Thank you. So, in closing tonight, and like every night at camp around the fire, let's close with the 3 words that we would say together. So those of you who know them, please feel free to join me. Peace, love, kayak. Thank you.